Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide, a reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that more than 180,000 federal, state, county, and local law enforcement agencies in the United States signal to each other by raising four fingers while keeping the thumb down? They do this to say, "We got this. Everything is safe and under control with no further assistance needed." Join with us in saying thank you to more than 30,000 men and women who form the thin blue line between chaos and order in society.
Today, we are digging into a stack of material that all centers on one big idea: the structure that keeps society running. We're talking about the concept of order and, the people who work to maintain that crucial boundary between order and chaos, what's often called the thin blue line.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating set of documents. They get right to the point, defining the civic purpose of law enforcement.
Which is more than just catching criminals, right?
Much more. It's about preventing, detecting, and investigating crime, yes. But the sources say its real job is enforcing laws, maintaining public order, and, ensuring public safety.
And we should probably clarify who we're even talking about here. It's a huge group.
It is.
The sources make it clear this isn't just your local police department. This deep dive really applies to that whole massive group of professionals we call first responders.
Exactly. Anyone trained to provide immediate help during an emergency. So our mission today is sort of threefold. First, we need to grasp the sheer scale of this whole structure. Second, we'll get into the kind of hidden history of policing, how it went from volunteers to what we have today. And finally, we'll explore this really interesting idea in the sources.
Which is?
How public order connects directly back to your own personal sense of order, your responsibility.
And we're doing this deep dive right around a specific date. The sources point out this is all timed with National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
That's right, which is recognized every year on January 9th.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I think we have to start with the scale, just trying to wrap our heads around how big this operation really is.
It's the only place to start, really.
The numbers are genuinely staggering. I mean, we might picture our local police officer, maybe some federal agents on TV, but what do the sources actually say?
They say there are over 18,000. That's 1 in 8,000. Federal, state, county, and local law enforcement agencies in the U.S.
18,000. That's not officers, that's entire agencies.
Correct. And that number, it just perfectly highlights how decentralized the whole system is in America. It's not one big thing.
So it's more like a patchwork.
Patchwork, a mosaic?
Yeah.
It's all built on local control,
Yeah.
federal rules, state laws. It's incredibly varied.
So what does that variation actually look like on the ground? I mean, 18,000 agencies.
Well, it creates huge differences. On one end of the spectrum, you might have a tiny town with just one, maybe part-time officer.
Just one person.
Just one. And on the other end, you have massive departments like the NYPD with, upwards of 30,000 officers.
Wow.
So the challenges for training, for funding, they're just completely different across that spectrum.
Right. And that decentralization, it must make the job of maintaining any kind of universal order so much harder.
It does. It means the responsibility is pushed way down to the local level. And that whole massive, diverse group operating under totally different conditions.
Yeah.
They are what the sources call the thin blue line.
And just to be clear, that term, the thin blue line, it's not an official government thing.
No.
It's a concept. The idea of that boundary, that line between chaos and order in society.
The last line of structured defense, essentially.
Okay, so let's zoom in. From that huge 18,000 agency scale right down to the ground. One of the most interesting things in the material was a piece of jargon.
Oh, yeah. Code 4.
Exactly. It just brings the reality of the job to life instantly.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how language has to evolve to be fast and clear when things are, chaotic.
So what does Code 4 actually mean?
In police radio talk, Code 4 means the situation is safe, it's under control, and crucially, no more help is needed.
So when you hear that, it means the officers on site have handled it.
Yeah. Threat neutralized, emergency resolved. It's basically mission accomplished for that one incident.
But what's really fascinating is that it's not always just spoken. The sources talk about a nonverbal signal, a hand gesture.
The common one they describe is raising four fingers but keeping your thumb down.
Why do that?
Well, think about it. If it's a loud, tense scene, maybe with a crowd, you need a silent way to tell your partners or approaching backup that everything's okay. You don't want to cause more alarm by shouting.
So it's a silent, we got this.
Exactly. Shows they're in command, the situation is stable again. The efficiency of it, communicating all that in a split second is just remarkable.
And that stability, restoring that stability is really the whole point of their job.
Fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
That's what allows the rest of society to function.
Which brings up the question, when did this all start? I mean, when did we shift from, informal community watches to this massive professional structure we have today? Let's get into that history.
It's so easy to just assume police departments have always been around like this, but
Yeah.
Nope, not true.
So what was it like back in the colonial days?
Well, back then, you didn't have a formal, publicly funded police force. Law enforcement was handled by constables, night watches, things like that.
So basically volunteers.
Mostly, yes. And here's the key thing. Those efforts were almost always privately funded, supported by local community members.
But that model, I can't imagine it working as cities started to grow. You get these huge populations crammed into places. That volunteer system must have just fallen apart.
It absolutely did. It became totally inadequate. The volunteer watches, they were inefficient, often corrupt, and just. They weren't equipped for the kind of crime that comes with big cities. You needed full-time, organized professionals.
So when did that finally happen? When did we get a state-supported professional department?
The big turning point was 1838. That's the year Boston, Massachusetts established the first truly public police department.
Modeled after London's police, right?
That's the one. And this is the moment policing went from being a private service or volunteer duty to a dedicated, full-time civic function, paid for by taxes.
And I'm guessing once Boston did it, other cities saw that it worked?
Spread like wildfire.
Mm.
The sources list the next big ones to follow: New York City, Chicago, New Orleans, Philadelphia. That first wave really set the foundation for what we have now. It established that keeping public order was a core duty of the government.
Okay, so that brings us back to the core idea here, the concept of order itself. The sources seem to argue that law enforcement is about more than just fighting crime. It's about creating an orderly society, a foundation for everything else.
And this is where the material gets really deep. Because if police maintain external public order, the sources start asking, where does that order even come from?
And it points back to us, to the individual.
It does. There's this one specific text in the stack. It's about spiritual and personal organization. And it gives this amazing framework for thinking about our own internal structure.
The one about establishing a house.
That's it. The quote is, organize yourselves, prepare every needful thing, and establish a house, even a house of prayer, a house of fasting, a house of faith, a house of learning, a house of glory, a house of order, a house of God.
And that list. Prayer, fasting, faith, learning, glory, order. It's more than just a spiritual checklist. The sources say it's a template for personal discipline.
Exactly. They're basically saying there's a direct causal link here. The goal is the house of order. But you can't just build that out of thin air. You need these other things first. Faith, learning, preparation, they're the bricks.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener. So how does me establishing a house of learning in my own life, how does that help public order out on the street?
Well, a house of learning, as it's framed here, means seeking to understand things, recognizing consequences, choosing knowledge over pure impulse. A society that's made up of people who value learning and reason is naturally going to be less chaotic. It's about self-governance, really.
And I assume a house of faith plays a similar role, an internal moral compass.
That's the idea. If people operate from a strong internal ethical code, there's just less need for external force to keep them in line.
So your personal discipline, the house of order you build inside yourself, isn't just self-help.
According to this framework, it's a profound civic contribution. A disciplined, orderly person reduces the burden on the whole system. Your personal framework becomes the bedrock for public safety.
So really the question the sources are asking you, the listener, is this. In what way does the order in your own life, inspired by these ideas of learning and faith and discipline, in what way does that contribute to an orderly society?
It's a powerful thought. If everyone focused on building their own internal structure, the need for the thin blue line to constantly intervene, it would naturally go down.
That's a fantastic takeaway. Okay, so let's tie this all back to the date we started with, January 9th, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
Right.
The sources give some very specific, tangible ways to show gratitude. It moves it from just thinking about it to actually doing something.
From the philosophical to the practical.
Exactly. The sources list 5 things. The first one is simple. Send a thank you note to your local, county, or state police department.
A little appreciation can go a long way in a stressful job.
For sure. The second one is just a visual show of support. Wear blue. It's a simple public acknowledgement.
Easy enough.
The third is maybe my favorite. It's so practical. Donate blood to the American Red Cross. That helps the whole community, including first responders.
Yeah, that's a great one. A truly tangible act of civic support.
And the last two bring us right back to our conversation about personal order. Number 4 is just follow the law.
The best way to show appreciation is to not require their services unnecessarily.
Exactly. And number 5, show respect for law enforcement officers who are out there protecting your community. A very simple, actionable list.
So, to sum it all up, the listeners should probably walk away with 3 main ideas today.
Okay, what are they?
First, the scale. Just the mind-boggling fact of over 18,000 separate law enforcement agencies. How decentralized it all is.
Right. Second, the history. That huge shift in 1838 in Boston when policing became a professional public job instead of a volunteer one.
And third, that philosophical connection. The idea from the sources that your own personal house of order, built on things like learning and faith, is directly linked to maintaining public order for everyone.
Absolutely. And to build on that idea of organization from that passage, establish a house of prayer, a house of faith, a house of learning, a house of order. We'll leave you with one final thought to mull over. We learned that professional policing had to be created to deal with the chaos of growing cities. The structure had to come from the outside. But if the ultimate goal is to establish a house of order, which of those elements from that list learning, faith, or just simple personal organization, which one do you think is the single most foundational requirement? The one that, if everyone perfected it, would most effectively maintain public order on its own?
A really powerful question. Where do the true roots of a stable society lie? Something to think about this week.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.